When our baby was born 3 months ago, I thought my life had finally clicked into place. I was exhausted, sure, but also overflowing with this weird, raw joy I'd never felt before. Holding my daughter for the first time was like stepping into another dimension. Suddenly, nothing else mattered except protecting her, loving her, and building a safe little world for our family. My wife and I had been together for 6 years, married for 2. We weren't perfect, but we laughed often, supported each other's careers, and shared a quiet sense of teamwork. Or so I thought. When she told me she was pregnant, I was terrified but determined. I doubled down at work, saved more, even took on extra responsibilities around the house during the pregnancy so she could rest. I wanted to be the kind of man who never left her wondering if she had a partner in this. In the hospital, when she was recovering and I sat next to her with our baby in my arms, I remember whispering, "We did it. We're really a family now." She smiled faintly, but something in her eyes seemed distracted. I brushed it off as exhaustion. After all, new moms go through so much. How could I expect her to beam like the proud father I was trying to be? I didn't realize then that what should have been the happiest chapter of our lives was already shadowed by something else. The first couple of weeks at home were a blur of feedings, diaper changes, and naps stolen whenever possible. I expected us to be exhausted and a little out of sync. What I didn't expect was how quickly the warmth between us started to cool. She became distant, not in the "I'm overwhelmed with motherhood" way I had prepared myself for, but in this sharp, dismissive way. When I tried to cuddle next to her on the couch while she nursed, she'd shift away. When I offered to take over night feedings so she could sleep, she brushed me off with, "You wouldn't do it right anyway." Her phone became glued to her hand. I chalked it up to scrolling mindlessly during feedings, but there were times she'd tilt the screen away if I walked by, or she'd leave the room with it, which was weird because she used to leave it on the counter without a second thought. Then there were the walks. She said she needed fresh air to clear her mind. Of course, I understood. Postpartum recovery is brutal. But these walks would stretch into an hour, sometimes longer, and she'd come back looking oddly refreshed, sometimes even giddy. Meanwhile, I was drowning in spit up and bottles, waiting for her to come back so I could shower or eat. I kept telling myself, "She's adjusting. She's stressed. Don't make it about you." But a quiet voice inside me was already whispering, "Something's off." The first real crack in the facade came one night when she fell asleep on the couch with her phone still in her hand. The screen lit up with a notification, and my stomach dropped when I saw the preview. "Can't stop thinking about you today." No name, just a number I didn't recognize. My pulse hammered in my ears. I wanted to wake her up right then, shove the phone in her face, demand answers. But our baby was asleep in the bassinet right next to us, and the thought of her tiny body stirring from my anger froze me in place. Instead, I sat there in the dark, staring at my wife snoring softly, my chest tightening like a vice. I told myself maybe it was a friend, a joke, some postpartum support group nonsense. Anything but the obvious. But the next day, patterns started falling into place. Her walks almost always happened at the same time every afternoon. She got noticeably defensive if I asked where she went. "Just out." "Why are you policing me now?" she snapped once, glaring at me as if I were the one sneaking around. And then, a week later, my sister casually asked me why my wife had been seen getting into a car with a man outside a coffee shop downtown. She thought nothing of it, assumed it was some family member helping her get around. I didn't even know what to say. I just laughed it off, but inside my heart was pounding. The walls of denial I had built around myself were starting to crumble. I couldn't hold it in anymore. One evening, after she came back from yet another walk, I asked her point blank, "Who were you with today?" Her eyes narrowed instantly, like she had rehearsed this. "What are you talking about? I was walking, alone. Do you want me to live like a prisoner now?" I told her what my sister had seen. I mentioned the text I'd glimpsed. Her face went pale for a split second, then hardened. She let out a bitter laugh. "You're insane. That's just postpartum paranoia. You don't understand what I'm going through. My hormones are all over the place, and instead of supporting me, you're accusing me? You should be ashamed." The way she said it, so cold, so dismissive, made me feel like I was the one losing my mind. She even brought up how little I could truly understand the toll childbirth had taken on her. And part of me, already wrung out from sleepless nights, wondered if she was right. Maybe I was projecting my exhaustion onto her. But deep down, the unease only grew. I could still hear that text message echoing in my head. Can't stop thinking about you today. If it wasn't what I feared, why wouldn't she just let me see her phone? After that confrontation, things got worse, not better. She doubled down on secrecy. Her phone was either in her hand or hidden away, and if I so much as glanced in its direction, she'd snap, "Stop snooping. You're obsessed." She started spinning this narrative that I was unstable, that fatherhood had broken me somehow. Anytime I brought up her behavior, she'd twist it around. "I'm allowed to have friends. You don't own me. You think every man I talk to is a threat? That's not love, that's control. I'm drowning, and all you care about is your jealousy." It was like arguing with a wall that hits back. What cut the deepest, though, was how cold she became. Intimacy vanished completely. Even small gestures, her hand brushing mine, a quick kiss before bed, were gone. She'd retreat into the bedroom with the baby, sometimes locking the door, leaving me on the couch with my thoughts. And yet, when family visited, she turned on the charm. Smiling, laughing, acting like the glowing new mother. I catch myself wondering if I was imagining everything. But as soon as the door closed behind our relatives, the mask would slip, and I was back to being the enemy. It was psychological warfare, and I was losing ground. It finally happened one night when she was half asleep, nursing the baby in bed. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, and without thinking, she unlocked it with her thumb and set it down beside her. I was sitting nearby, rocking myself awake just to make sure the baby didn't choke while feeding. The screen lit up and I saw it. A message from Aaron's speech balloon. "Wish I could hold you right now. Miss your smell." My stomach dropped so hard I almost felt dizzy. There it was. The thing I had been gaslit into doubting, into second-guessing myself over, sitting in plain sight. I picked up the phone. My hands were shaking. She stirred and muttered, "What are you doing?" I shoved the screen in front of her face. "Explain this. Right now." For a second, pure panic flashed across her face. But then, just as quickly, it hardened into defiance. She yanked the phone from my hand. "You're out of line," she said flatly. "It's nothing. He's just a friend from before. You don't get it. I've been so lonely, and I needed someone to talk to. Nothing physical happened. You're blowing this up because you can't handle me needing space." Couldn't believe it. After months of lies, secrecy, and distance, this was her defense? That she was just talking to a man who wanted to hold her and missed her smell? It was the first time I felt something shift inside me. The pain was still there, but beneath it, a spark of anger lit up. A few days after the Aaron revelation, I was still trying to wrap my head around it when my mother-in-law called me out of the blue. Her voice was tight, careful. "Look, I think you should know something. She's been meeting someone." She told me it was just emotional support, but I warned her it wasn't fair to you. I went silent. My throat burned. So it wasn't just me imagining things. She had admitted it to her own mother, no less. Later that week, my own sister cornered me. "Why do I keep hearing about your wife having coffee with some guy near her work? People are starting to talk." It felt like the walls of my life were collapsing in. Everyone seemed to know something, everyone but me. When I confronted my wife with what her mother had said, she exploded. "Unbelievable. My own family stabbing me in the back? Do you see what you've done? You've turned everyone against me." She wasn't even denying it anymore, just shifting the blame, twisting the knife deeper. That night, I sat alone in the living room, the baby monitor buzzing softly beside me, and realized the cruelest part of all. While I had been drowning in diapers, formula, and night feedings, while I had been trying to keep us afloat, she had been building an escape hatch with someone else. The breaking point came one Saturday afternoon. She said she needed to run errands and left me with the baby. Hours passed. No texts, no updates. When she finally came home, she smelled faintly of cologne. Not perfume, not baby lotion, but something masculine, sharp, foreign. I asked her straight up, "Were you with him?" Her eyes flashed with fury. "You're pathetic. You think everything I do revolves around some man? I can't even breathe without you accusing me." I pressed harder. My voice cracked when I asked, "Why would you do this to us?" To her, pointing at our daughter asleep in the bassinet. That's when she said it, cold as ice. "I didn't ask you to be a martyr. You wanted this perfect little family fantasy. And now you're shocked I can't live up to it. Maybe I just don't love you the way you want me to." Felt like being stabbed. Not just the betrayal of her words, but the casual way she said them, like she'd already moved on. I slept in the nursery that night with my daughter beside me. For the first time, I let myself think the unthinkable. Maybe my marriage was already over. After that night, I walked around in a fog. I'd always heard people say betrayal feels like death, but I hadn't understood it until now. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was grief. I was grieving the woman I thought I married, the life I thought we were building, the family I thought I could protect. Every time I looked at my daughter, the pain doubled. She deserved 2 loving parents, not this battlefield. I'd hold her at 3 a.m., rocking her tiny body, and whisper apologies she couldn't possibly understand. "I'm sorry, baby. I didn't know it would be like this. I'm trying." Meanwhile, my wife carried on like nothing had changed. Some days she was almost cordial, asking if I wanted tea, or thanking me when I changed the baby's diaper. But those moments felt fake, rehearsed, like she was keeping me just steady enough not to explode. Other days, she'd be openly hostile, rolling her eyes if I even breathed in her direction. The worst part? I caught myself questioning my own reality. Was I overreacting? Was she right, that it was just postpartum confusion? Nothing more? But then I'd remember the messages, the cologne, the family whispers, and the pit in my stomach would return. I was stuck between 2 crushing truths. I couldn't imagine life without her, and I couldn't imagine surviving much more with her. If it weren't for my daughter, I think I would have fallen apart completely. She became my anchor in the storm. Every time she grabbed my finger with her tiny hand, or pressed her cheek against my chest, I felt like I had a reason to keep going. Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake listening to her soft breaths in the crib beside me, while my wife scrolled endlessly on her phone in the other room. I started to notice how different my world was from hers. Mine revolved around bottles, burp cloths, and baby giggles. Hers seemed to orbit someone on the other end of a glowing screen. I promised myself one thing. No matter what happened between us, I would not abandon my daughter. I'd seen men do that, walk away, start over, leave their kids in the wreckage. That wasn't going to be me. But the thought of raising her in a home filled with tension, coldness, and lies made me sick. I began to realize that protecting her didn't just mean being present. It might mean making the hardest decision of my life. And that decision was creeping closer every day. I knew I couldn't make any decisions based on suspicion alone. The messages, the secretive outings, the smells, the whispers, they were pieces of a puzzle. But I needed proof, something concrete. For my daughter's sake, I couldn't afford to be wrong. So I started keeping notes. Every strange outing, every defensive comment, every odd behavior. I wrote it down. I checked her phone when she wasn't around, carefully, trying not to make it obvious. I took screenshots, logged times, even started tracking receipts and locations she claimed were just errands. It was exhausting, but I felt a grim sense of purpose. I wasn't spying because I wanted to ruin her. I was preparing to protect my child. The more I documented, the more patterns emerged. The late-night texts, the coffee shop visits, the man she spoke to in whispers while pretending to step out for air. When I confronted her with these details, she doubled down on her cold, dismissive act. "You're insane. Stop turning everything into a crime scene." But the proof was undeniable. I could see it. My reality was validated. It was painful but also clarifying. I finally understood. This wasn't a temporary lapse, a postpartum confusion, or a miscommunication. This was deliberate. I reached my breaking point one evening. She had promised to stay home with the baby while I ran a quick errand, but I came back early. The car wasn't in the driveway. My heart sank. I grabbed my keys and followed a hunch to the coffee shop near her errand route. There she was, laughing softly, leaning close to a man I had seen in screenshots countless times. Erin. My stomach twisted. I froze for a second, trying to process it. When she noticed me, her face fell. Not with guilt, but with irritation. "What are you doing here?" "Explain this," I said, my voice shaking, but steadier than I expected. "Right now, in front of me." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, for God's sake. You've gone full psycho. He's a friend. We were just talking. Calm down." Couldn't. All the gaslighting, the dismissals, the lies, they came crashing down. I grabbed her arm, not roughly, but firmly. "Don't lie to me. I know everything. This isn't just talking. And I'm done pretending I don't know." Her face went cold. "Fine. You caught me. Happy now? But don't act like you're the victim. You're not innocent either." That moment changed everything. I realized there was no negotiation, no reconciliation unless she chose honesty. And for the first time, I felt a clarity that had been buried under months of confusion. I had to protect my child, no matter the cost. After that confrontation, I spent a sleepless week thinking through every possible scenario. Staying together seemed impossible. Trust was gone, and every interaction with her felt like walking on a minefield. But leaving meant facing life as a single parent, balancing a newborn, and protecting my daughter from the fallout. I consulted a lawyer, quietly, just to understand my options. Custody, separation, legal protections, it all felt overwhelming. But I kept coming back to one principle. My daughter's well-being comes first. Nothing else mattered. Finally, I made a decision. I would move forward with separation. I would fight for full custody if I had to, and I would ensure she remained in a stable, loving environment. My arms, my guidance, my protection. Forgiveness might come later, or it might never. But for now, survival, clarity, and safety were my priorities. I told her calmly one evening, "I can't do this anymore. We're done. I'll make sure our daughter has what she needs. You can be in her life, but only if it's honest and respectful. I won't allow anything less." Her face twisted, a mix of disbelief and anger, but I felt strangely free. The weight of uncertainty, of betrayal, was lifted. I had chosen my path. Separation wasn't easy. Packing her things, dividing our shared spaces, and explaining to friends and family what had happened felt like navigating a storm. But each step, no matter how painful, reinforced my resolve. The first weeks were the hardest. Nights were lonely, and exhaustion hit harder without her presence. Even though I was the one holding the baby through feedings, there were moments of anger, tears, and self-doubt. But I clung to my anchor, my daughter. Every smile, every coo, every tiny hand that gripped mine reminded me why I couldn't falter. I started therapy, both to process the betrayal and to learn how to parent through the chaos. Slowly, I realized that healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant reclaiming my life and my dignity. My ex-wife tried to manipulate and guilt me into staying, claiming it was for the baby. But I had learned that protecting my daughter didn't mean sacrificing my own self-respect. Over time, the fog began to lift. I rebuilt routines, established boundaries, and focused on creating a stable, nurturing environment. There was pain, yes, but also a growing sense of clarity and strength I hadn't known I possessed. Looking back now, the betrayal still stings, but it no longer defines me. I've learned some hard truths about trust, love, and self-respect. People can fail us in unimaginable ways, but our responsibility, especially as parents, is to rise above the chaos for the ones who depend on us. I've also realized that love without honesty is not love at all. Protecting my daughter meant making the hardest choices of my life. Walking away from someone I once believed was my partner, confronting lies, and facing the fear of raising her alone. But it also taught me that strength doesn't come from perfection. It comes from persistence, clarity, and putting the well-being of those we love above our own immediate comfort. Today, our home is quieter but safer. My daughter smiles freely, and I can finally feel peace in the little routines we've built together. I've learned to trust my instincts, to recognize manipulation, and to prioritize what truly matters. If anyone reading this is in a similar situation, here's my advice. Document, observe, and protect. But most importantly, never let betrayal convince you that you're powerless. You may not control other people's actions, but you can control how you respond, and that can make all the difference for the life of a child and the reclaiming of your own self-respect.